Welcome to the Blueprint Strategy Podcast, your premier destination for insights and innovations in healthcare and nonprofit leadership. I'm your host, Todd Schmiedler, and together we'll explore the strategies and stories that are transforming these vital sectors. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and invited to the conversation. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to our very first podcast, and I could not be more excited because I not only get to introduce one of the best leaders I've ever known in my entire life, but she is also one of the best people I've known in my entire life. And with all transparency, she is my best friend in this world, and I'm honored to have her as our first guest because I know that she is going to do something that is going to transform what you learn about leadership in the next 20 minutes. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cathe Dykstra, the CEO of Family Scholar House. And more than anything else, I want to start by talking about you, Cathe. Because we've known each other now for 25 plus years. You've been at Family Scholar House for 20 years, and you came into this work with a very diverse background. And I'd love for you to share your background because I found it fascinating when I first learned, and I still do, because it brings so much daily value into your work.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be the very first guest. I do have a very diverse background, and I taught my daughter when she was very, very young that not to say what do you want to be when you grow up, because I didn't want her to think that I was any of the things that I've done, because those kept changing. And I didn't want the very nature of who her mother was to be constantly in flux. So I'm a person who can do lots of different things, as the rest of us are as well. But along the way, I did a lot of things. I was the circulation assistant in a library, managing international students. I could shelf read like nobody's business. I'm really good at it. And I also had a background in serving folks that had experienced domestic violence and folks that wanted to start a business or buy a home. I'd worked in a bank, found myself on the wrong side of the desk, wanted to give all the money away. That's not really so cool in banking. But all of those things contributed to really what I wanted to do, and that was to make a real difference. And if you go all the way back, when I was very, very little, I grew up in the church, and the church has always been part of my life. But in my tradition, 3 to 5 year olds were sunbeams. And we even had a
Huh.
little song about how Jesus wants me for a sunbeam
Yeah.
to shine for him each day. In every way, try to please him at home, at work, at play. So honestly, the seeds of service were planted so very early, and I watched it in my parents, and I watched it in the women and men around me. And so it was never really a matter of would I serve, it was how would
Oh.
I serve others,
Mhm.
and make a life of it.
Yeah, for those of the few people who might be listening to this that have never heard of Family Scholar House, can you give kind of a history of Family Scholar House and where it was when you started 20 years ago and where it is today? And I know that we can't go into the entire scope
Right.
of Family Scholar House, but I'd love for people to get a really good idea about the overview of it.
Yeah, I'm glad to. Family Scholar House actually started in 1995 as Project Women, founded by representatives of 6 orders of nuns, not by the Catholic Church, not by the orders, but by individual women, all of whom had been educators. And they kept it intentionally small because they had other duties in the church, and so they could only manage so much. So I got there in 2005, and they were serving 4 people, and they had 4 staff. And I had never worked anywhere with a 1-to-1 staff ratio, and that was neither sustainable nor scalable. The bigger challenge was the budget. At that time, a $289,900 a year budget to help 4 people, which I don't know how to fundraise for that. That's hard.
Yeah.
So the board really wanted somebody who would take it to scale and make it sustainable. And I have an economics background. I'm not a social worker. Love my social workers, but I'm not one. And I could see the potential. So dug in, found the outcomes, started new programs, was told I couldn't and did it anyway. Changed the name because Project Women sounded like we thought women were broken and needed to be fixed, or
Mhm.
that we were going to make them out of, I don't know, spare parts.
Right.
And that wasn't that. So we really embraced the Family Scholar House model. And then in 2022, we birthed our own parent company. So Family is the parent company with Family Scholar House as the really foundational subsidiary, but also 6 others.
Mm.
And so I get to lead all of that. Last year, we served 106,004
Wow.
households across 48
From
states.
4 to 106,000 plus,
Hmm.
you know, in 20 years,
Uh-huh. And a budget that went from 289,900 to 25 million.
25,000,000.
Uh-huh. And in the beginning, money was in very short supply. And now I've just never worried about money. I just don't, that's not me. If
Mhm.
if you're somebody who worries about money, I don't know how to help you, but I don't worry about money because I don't believe worried people get more money.
Right.
I
I
don't,
I actually believe that they don't get
yeah.
more money, you
Who
know?
wants to give money to a worried person? They
That's
look
right.
like they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So we've just always served, and then the money comes, and that's been a real blessing because it's just not something I have to think about.
Yeah. Well, it's, one of the reasons that I was always attracted to Family Scholar House outside of the fact that, you and I were friends and I value leadership, over even an organization's mission. But the mission itself was so intimate to me because of the commitment and the fortune that I had with having a single mom
Single
most of
mother.
my life, and the value that Family Scholar House offers about breaking the cycle of poverty, especially early on, that was meaningful to me. Talk to me a little bit about that, the breaking the cycle and how impactful that can be, not only for the mothers, but for generations to
For
come.
generations to come. So in the beginning, the sisters who founded us were only focused on really on single mothers.
Mhm.
And really that's the majority of who we've served all along in Family Scholar House, in that signature subsidiary. And that work has always been, since I got there, two generational. I had a mother early on say, if you're not helping me with my children, don't fool
Yeah.
yourself. You're not breaking the cycle of anything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And that really resonated with me
Yeah.
because helping her was great, but she didn't know how to help her children because nobody'd helped her.
Right.
And so, really bringing together both the adult services and the children's services and meshing them so that the whole family is on a path for success has been a part of what we have done. Now, that's the smallest piece of what we do, but it's the deepest and most intensive services. And what I see is that when people have an opportunity to get the education that they need for the careers of their choice, they invest themselves fully into it, they embrace the opportunities of it, and then they serve. They give back to the community in meaningful ways, whether that's being part of PTA or being a
Yeah.
nurse. We
Yeah,
have
yeah.
62% going to healthcare. So they're doing those things, but also raising amazing children who are doing those things too. And we get to see that on a daily basis. I'm still very close to all of our families, and particularly to our children, the
Yeah.
little kids that grew up living with us in those early days that are not little kids anymore.
Yeah.
That are taller than me
Yeah.
and bigger than me, and tell me that they're going to take care of me.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
those kids are just a real blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do so much. I'd love it for you to talk a little bit about the barriers that those participants, encounter and some of the programs that you help them with,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to understand the context of that.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things that we do is we're really good listeners. So
Okay.
we hear what people say and understand the need that they have that they may not even be able to communicate.
Yep.
And let
Yep.
me give you a really good example. Early on, we were doing an annual report and we wanted our adults to say something about a children's book that they loved when they were kids
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what the
Yeah, yeah.
message was in it that they would really want their kids to get out of this book that meant so much to them. And, we had enough participants, but not so many that everybody could participate. And when we got all those back, we could make 2 stacks. There was this whole stack of stuff that was The Cat in the Hat, some other Dr. Seuss stuff, Bible stories,
Okay.
and the Boxcar Children, because they were the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
homeless people that most
Yeah.
of my families
Yeah.
ever encountered in stories. And then there was this much larger pile of people who say, I was never read to as a child.
Wow.
I was never read to as a child, but a story that I would want my kids to resonate with is, or something like that. And it really hit me like, I always read to my daughter. People always read to me.
Yeah.
And those stories it wasn't just about literacy. It was about communicating values
Mhm.
and having conversation around a story. So we launched from that Toddler Book Club, which
Okay.
was
Yeah.
helping our parents and our
Yeah.
kids bond
Yeah.
over books, bringing in community folks to do the reading and having a snack and a craft and all the things that made books come to life,
Yeah.
as a way to say, we overlooked this,
Yeah.
but we heard you and you want this. And so that's just one example, Healthy Me, which is about family health and wellness, leading an active lifestyle. All of these things came about because we listened to things that they didn't know or wanted to know or had a hunger for knowing more about, and we could provide the programming for it. Financial education, we've always done that for adults,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we created our own financial education program for little kids
Oh, that's
called
amazing.
Children for Change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our kids don't have any much money. Most
Yeah.
kids don't, but they have exactly the same amount of time that you and I have, Todd. And so we taught them how to budget their time, the
Ah,
same principles that you would use to
used to
budget
budget
money.
money.
Yeah,
That's
it's
brilliant.
been fun.
Well, I know that you have several facilities in the kind of the Louisville, Kentucky area.
Mhm.
Is it five,
We have
six?
5 already built active facilities
Okay.
in Louisville. We're building a 6th in Louisville, one in Sellersburg, Indiana, one in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and then we have a partnership with Brenshore Development for Houston, Texas, and another one for Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow, that's amazing. And I've always been fascinated. There's this one thing that you did in the buildings that just totally caught me off guard. I think you know what it is.
My doors.
Your doors.
My
I mean,
doors.
it just is so remarkable. I always talk in terms of simple brilliance.
Mhm.
And that had amazing simple brilliance. Can you share that?
Yeah, because it's just
Yeah.
paint, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, early on with the first campus, I asked our architects to come up with the palettes so that we would paint the doors different colors. There would be no repeat of color
Yep.
in any one floor in any one building. And he said, "It's gonna look hokey." And I said, "Well, you're the architect. I'm counting on you to make sure it doesn't look hokey, but it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not about the aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's about the fact that all of our kids have been homeless. Our children have, in some cases, moved 5, 6, 7 times in the year before they live with us, and they don't have a sense of belonging. And if every door is the same color and it looks like a hotel complex, right?
Yeah.
Where do they live?
Right.
So by giving each family, like the doors are different colors, they identify with the color of the doors. And we have little kids say, "Miss Cathe, I'm the blue door on the second floor, I'm the
Yeah.
red door on the first floor." And our adults do too.
Yeah.
And it becomes part of their identity. And one of the most awesome things that's happened from that is that I've had 134 of our participants graduate, 944 graduated, but 134 graduate and buy homes.
Wow.
And in many, many cases, they call back and say, "I need to know the exact name of the color
Feel
that was on my door at Family Scholar House because that means home to my family. And we want our front door to be that same color." And so I've gotten really good at Porter paint colors because we have different colors for every
Yeah.
campus. But
Yeah.
that's, if we've given them a sense of belonging, sense of groundedness through a little bit of paint, which you got to paint anyway, you just pick a different color, then that's probably been one of our greatest blessings.
Well, there's just so much depth in the work that you've done, and not just you've done, because I know that you're the first to say that takes a village
Oh,
to raise
absolutely.
a family, and you're raising literally hundreds of families, at any given time. You talk to me a little bit about how you lead your team, because I've always felt like that you had a very small but very mighty team, and I know, except when you started, when it was 4 for 4, one on one.
Well, they all had to go except for me.
Yeah. So
People who'd gotten used to helping just 4 people
uh,
weren't gonna like what was coming.
that's right. So, tell me about how you lead a team, and what are the fundamental values that you bring that enable your team to really be the success that you've created?
Okay. So one of the things I've seen in the course of my career, doing a lot of different things, is people often hired me to do something because I'd previously done it.
Yeah.
And I don't choose to do that.
Yeah.
I hire people because they have the potential to do something, because
Yeah.
I want them to grow and stretch. But in order to do so, they're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so one of the core values we have is a blame-free environment. And by that, I don't mean not accountability. We have accountability, but I won't blame you for making a mistake, because the best way for you to never get blamed again is to never do anything creative.
That's right.
Just shut it down.
That's right.
Because if you do everything exactly the same always, then you never got in trouble for it before. You're not going to get in trouble for it again. And we'll never get where we need to go that way. So it gets to be a real challenge when you hire somebody from, a big corporation where they've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how something wasn't their
Yeah.
fault before they even tell you that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then they come to you and they tell you and you go, I don't care. I don't care. Did you fix it?
Right.
Did you learn something from it?
Right.
Have you set it up so that it won't happen again? And they're just stunned because they're so busy trying to figure out, I got to make sure that I blame Todd. It's Todd's fault. Todd did it. And I don't care.
Occasionally, sometimes it probably was.
Well, the cool thing is when they do get past that, and if
Yeah.
they don't, they usually probably don't
Don't
stay.
make it. Yeah.
Yeah. But once they get past that, they're so much more creative and innovative and collaborative with each other,
Yeah.
because they're not trying to figure out how it's not their fault. They're trying to figure out how we do something meaningful together. And so we do a lot of creative things. They don't all work out. They do not all work out. But the ones that work out really well. And as long as we fail fast and quick and inexpensively,
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Well, outside of a culture of trust,
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's been remarkable that I've seen is your spirit of entrepreneurism. To a level that I don't think that very many, entrepreneurs in the public sector would even think that a nonprofit from a social sector would do. Can you highlight maybe one or two of those, that you think that, hey, they just came up and you said, we got to commit to this because this is the right thing to do and it's going to make an impact.
Right. Everybody thinks nonprofits are a chili supper
yeah,
right out of the fellowship hall. And
That's
that's
right.
not true.
That's right.
We've done some really creative things. And some of those things have been so far ahead of their time that people really didn't think we could do them.
Yeah.
And kind of following that blame-free thing, we have to hold ourselves blame-free too. We're going to try things and they may not work out,
Right.
but we're going to learn from it and then move forward. One of the most recent ones is our foray into modular housing.
Okay.
We've really fully embraced modular construction. And I got told how stupid it was and that I was
what
going to risk
exactly
my
is
business and all that.
I think modular housing
Yeah.
and I think mobile homes.
Yeah,
okay?
they think trailer at the lake.
Yeah,
where their grandma
so
lived.
tell me.
Walk down the hall and all the cabinet doors open.
Yeah,
No, it's not that.
Yeah, I can't imagine you having. I've seen your facilities, and I know how nice they are. And they're top of the line. I mean, they're really worthy of giving people hope and courage and strength. What do you mean by modular?
Yeah. So imagine that you build out in the wild.
Yeah.
Now you bring that inside a factory and you build 85% of it inside the factory, exactly the same way you would out in the wild.
Okay.
And then you finish 15% on site.
Okay.
So you have the benefit of a climate controlled environment. We have the benefit of steel frame construction, which means no mold. Less organic material, so obviously that reduces mold. Encapsulated, so if your neighbor leaves their sink on, they flood, you don't.
Okay.
Even though you're below them.
Okay.
Because it flows out. All of those things. It's the nicest housing I've ever built.
Okay.
I mean, it's way nice.
Yeah.
But it also, the benefit for the construction team is that during this really crazy winter we had where it was so cold and so wet, they had one day they missed because the roads were too bad to get there. The rest of the time, they were in a climate-controlled environment building housing. So they weren't in a hurry because they weren't cold. Now they're not in a hurry because they're not hot. They're doing their work exactly the way they're supposed to every day in the same spot. Also, one of the cool things is it makes it easier for women to be a part of the construction team because you're going to the same place every day. So your childcare can be in the same place. Everything is the same. You have a shift. So you're not looking for a construction site out in the world. So that's a really good example of something we've done very recently that's been very entrepreneurial. But other things we've done is we embraced our response center.
Okay.
In January of 2020, I came to our team and said, if I love the ITM at Republic Bank. I
Yeah.
just freaking love the thing.
Yeah.
Little
Yeah.
people in a box.
Yeah.
We're going to do that, and they were so nice to me, and they listened, and then they said, Cathe, we're just not really sure anybody wants to work with us virtually.
Yeah.
January of 2020. So we started it. 2 months later, it's all the world had,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
had 2 months of practice.
Yeah.
So that has allowed us to help employers for a fee, Medicaid companies for a fee,
Yeah.
other property owners for a fee. So we've been able to bring in revenue, whereas we don't charge any of our educational partners
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
allow us to do it for free for the folks that really need it for free and charge the people who have a budget for it.
Wow. Diversify your revenue stream while increasing the number of people you serve on an ongoing basis
Yes.
and meet them where they're at as opposed to always them having to come to you.
Right, and that's upstream from Family Scholar House.
Yeah.
It's how do we help people so that they won't need to live with us? Because I'll never be able to build as much housing as we need.
Yeah, so that's a thought, because I understand this and you understand this, but really Family Scholar House has one fundamental quality to it or element to it around housing.
Yep.
And that your other services, these other entities that are feed off of your parent company don't necessarily have,
Nope.
but they
Some
become
of them do, some of
they
them
become
don't.
a feeder or a service to that population, plus adding additional services to
Or
people.
the after part, because we're now building single-family homes modular.
Okay.
So that's home ownership.
Okay.
So we've got the work to keep you from needing to live with us, the work when you need to live with us, if you do, and then the work after you've lived with us when you want to own a home of your own.
So I know how committed you are to data.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
yes.
I mean, we talk about this all the time. Can you talk a little bit about the data that you're committed to, and then the why? Why did
Yeah.
you get so passionate about data?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I often heard at our organization and others, we're nice people who do things that matter for folks who need it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How many?
Yeah.
What's the outcome? Not what's the output, not
Yeah.
how many cans of goods did you give out, but what difference did that make? And I think what really has been lacking in our industry for a very long time is the connection to the donors who support you and the outcomes that you get because of that support.
Yeah.
And the only way I know how to get there is data. We currently track 250 fields of information for every household that we serve,
Okay.
deep data.
Yeah.
And we can show how a family is better off, what worked, what didn't, how they come off of government benefits, and what the return on investment is to the community.
Wow.
I love numbers.
So, and how does that impact? You went from $200 and something thousand dollar budget to $25 million budget. Does
Mhm.
data play into that?
Absolutely.
Okay. How does that play into that so that, other organizations, whether you're a nonprofit or whether you're healthcare or anything, data becomes more important, and healthcare is kind of used to it because there's been an electronic medical record or electronic health record for a while. And it sounds like you have very similar kind of approach to things. How is it helping you with your expansion of that budget?
Yeah, so we describe ourselves as electronic medical records for human services. So
Oh,
very
okay.
much like electronic medical records. Your doctor types while she's
Yep.
talking to you.
Yeah.
Our folks type while they're talking to you, and they're
Okay.
recording all that information. But the way that's helped is that somebody will give you an amount of money, often a smaller one,
Yeah.
but they'll invest in you a much larger amount when they understand what the return on investment is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So bigger
That,
grants,
that makes total sense.
deeper relationships, ongoing relationships, because when we want all of our donors to be proud of the work that we've done together and to feel like they contributed meaningfully to it, because they did.
Right.
So then they get
Yeah.
to own those outcomes too, not the outputs, the
Right.
outcomes.
It-
That matters.
So when you think about that, do you think about that in terms of more immediate, short term, or long term? Do you do stuff that are long term
Oh, yeah.
output? Okay,
Yeah.
and what would that look like? Like if you take me through like a example of somebody who you might you know be providing services for,
Okay.
like where does that start?
It starts at intake. We
Okay.
get we get their basics, but we
Okay.
also get their self-sufficiency matrix using the Arizona self-sufficiency matrix, which
Okay.
is a validated survey used nationwide by Human Services. And
So you're not
it's
just making up your own
no, no, no,
questions on
no.
everything.
And
Okay.
it's objective. It's not how do you feel about your food security.
Right.
It's which of these definitions is accurate.
Okay.
And so we're getting that baseline, and then we're doing that again when they're working with us all the time, and then we're doing it when they're moving in, and then
Okay.
we're doing it regularly thereafter every 6 to 9 months, and then we're doing it when they graduate. And so we're able to see that somebody who had it's on a scale of 1 to 5,
Okay.
that
All right.
maybe had a 2,
Yep.
now has a 5.
Okay.
And that is
Yeah,
huge,
huge. Right.
huge.
Right.
That means they're independent.
Yeah.
And we get to watch them come off of government benefits, but we also get to see their kids, health of their kids, participation in school, both in their attendance, their grades, and their test scores, their MAP scores, measurement of academic progress. All those things together show us how much better off the family is
Okay.
because they had this stabilizing
Yeah,
experience.
it sounds like a very comprehensive view, a
It does.
holistic view, because you've already mentioned, food, financial services, housing, transportation, healthcare for that matter.
All of it. Mental health, physical health, all of it.
Okay. When this has been great, and I know we've been, just jetting through this time frame, so I want to be cognizant of your time. I know how busy you are. One of the things that I want to end with is this feeling like in our world today there's a lot of divisiveness.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pointing at fingers and a lot of tearing down of things. And some of that is political, some of that's organizational, some of that's just people in general. You know, I want to take just 1 second and because one of the things I've found over the years with Family Scholar House is that it's been a unifier, and even a unifier of frankly political adversaries.
Mm.
And I'd love for you to share just a minute about that because I think it's so important as we introduce other nonprofits and even healthcare organizations that there are ways that organizations can help bridge a gap that might be
Mhm.
political in nature, but we can do that. How has Family Scholar House been able to do that?
We have support across the full spectrum, politically, faiths, everything. And part of that is because the one thing that unites everybody around Family Scholar House is we want families to be able to do better.
Yeah.
Some people want them to need to do better or to be motivated to be better. I've never seen a lack of motivation. I think my participants are the bravest. They're doing hard things every day. They're doing things they've never seen anybody else do.
Yeah.
But when you want the best for the people in your community or in your nation or in your state or whatever, when you want the best for them and you're willing to invest in a way for them to do it for themselves,
Yeah.
not have it done for them, then everybody comes together around that.
Yeah, and I gotta think that the other thing is that you're not just, helping people be the best versions of themselves and frankly,
Mm.
generationally, but you're also creating people who take pride in their community,
They do.
who all of a
And give back.
sudden, are giving back and they're working hard and they've got a perspective that might add value to any company. They also are
Absolutely.
taxpayers,
They are.
and they're doing those things that make us all proud to be, part of this country. And,
Exactly.
when we do that, everybody seems to get along a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And I've noticed that over the years with you guys. And, I think the only other thing that I wanted to kind of, I know how passionate you are about the mission and how much time you spend on your work. Uh, you know, eh, Tell us a little bit about what you like to do outside of work. And I know that it's
Baseball.
I
I love baseball.
yeah.
I love baseball.
So right now it's baseball season when we're
Baseball
doing
season.
this.
Yep.
So, when you say you love baseball, how do you find time to actually still do baseball?
Oh, I watch baseball on television.
Okay.
And I go to games and I go to stadiums and I love baseball. But I love the strategy of baseball. I
Okay.
care much less about who wins and the fact that they get to play and seeing that they learn as they play. There are very few things you can do where if 3 times out of 10 you're successful, you'll be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You can fail 70% of the time and still be in the Hall of Fame.
That's crazy.
So they are innovating, creating,
Yeah.
learning, strategizing, communicating, all of that on the field. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating
Great.
as always. Thank you,
Honored.
Cathe, for being here, and thanks for being my first guest.
Absolutely.
I want to thank everybody for coming and taking their time out of their busy schedule. I know how many things that you can take you away, and how much priorities you have, how many priorities you have. I just want to say thank you. Hopefully, this has had some enlightenment. I'm not sure how you could walk away from a conversation with Cathe and not be enlightened. But come back in 2 weeks, and hopefully I'll have guests almost as good as Cathe, but will always bring you value to what you do. So thanks so much for your time, and thank you again, Cathe.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Blueprint Strategy Podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and inspired you to take action in your own organization. To stay connected and never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us on our socials. And remember, you can find more resources and information at www.thumbprint.consulting. Again, that's www.thumbprint.consulting. Until next time, keep finding ways to innovate and to leave your mark.